Are you tired of manually trudging through an interaction with an LLM? You say something, it says something back, and you go on and on until you get what you need out of it. And I know what you're thinking, because what I've given you in previous steps is I've taken a single interaction that you do with ChatGPT. You say, hey, analyze this user text, and then it gives you it back. And that's a single interaction that you could do. And instead, I've now given you 3 steps. Sure, you can use a small model now, but it's 3 steps. That's more work, right? So let's automate that. Now, we've been learning about workflows, and a workflow is essentially a sequence of actions put together in order to achieve a goal. So you have some discrete, specific actions, and when you chain them together, you have an input going into step 1, and then step 1, it gives you an output that goes into step 2 as an input, and step 2 gives you an output, and so on until you achieve a goal. And an agent is what happens if we said, hey, what if we gave our workflow a brain? Because if we gave our workflow a brain, all we need to care about is to give it a task along with the tools that it needs to accomplish that task. And then it's up to the agent to get to the goal. And the task could be something like, using a browser or whatever, but it could also just be having having the autonomy to write some prompts and to prompt an LLM. So in this example, we've got our 3 steps that get the positive insights, get the negative insights, and do the structuring. So those are the tasks that the agent needs to accomplish. And Sani had a really good analogy that I'm going to steal here. Imagine if you needed to get from A to B. A workflow is when you have some defined route. But what if you come across a roadblock? Then you're stuck. And if this was an automation, at this point you would need some human intervention to get unstuck. With an agent, all you're doing is you just give an agent to say, hey, get to B, here's a map, figure it out. And if it gets stuck in that same roadmap, in the same roadblock, sorry, then it's up to it to figure its way around to get to B. So that's enough theory now. Let's actually get to build our first AI agent. So if we create our chat trigger, and as before, we can just say hello. So we trigger the chat trigger. Actually, instead of saying hello, let's put in our user feedback. And we trigger that. And so now we can see as chat input, we've given some user feedback. Now in the nodes, previously we've created a basic LLM chain. This time what we're going to do is create an AI agent as the next node. And here we want to define our prompt below. And where it says prompt user message, go to expression and then open this up. And we've got our input as the previous step. Drag that in as our expression. And let's put in our mega prompt. And what this mega prompt is doing is we've given it some context. So barbecue style theme parks, we've given it a role. And so it's a customer support analyst, and we've given it a task. So step 1, summarize negative insights from the user feedback. Step 2, summarize positive insights. Step 3, structure the output as JSON. So those are the steps, those are the tasks that we've defined for the agent. And we've given it an example output for what we want, what we expect as an output. And then if we look over on the result, this is an example of what that prompt would look like for that agent. So if we now execute that step, we'll get an error because we haven't added a model. So let's add the model, and we can pick between any number of models from any number of services, but let's go with Olama. Olama, and let's go with Qwen3. We're big fans of Qwen3, and this is a tiny model, remember. And for this, we need to remember to have the Olama server running in order to use this. And for the AI agent, we need to add some simple memory. And this is purely so that the agent can remember where it's at when it's making multiple calls to the tools, to the AI model. So it just remembers what stage it's at. And context window length of 5 is fine as a default for this. It's a simple agent. And we could go ahead and add tools if we wanted to. So these are the kind of tools that are available. So you could go and fetch data from other sources or whatever. It doesn't need to do that because all it needs is to use the model and to prompt multiple times to the model. So let's open up this again and let's execute that step again. And once that step has been executed, we'll get our output. It's easier to look here. We'll get our output, which is some nicely structured insights as JSON. Now, this is all well and good, and you might be thinking, well, let's just use AI agents for everything. And this is when we really need to be weighing up the options between workflows and agents and where they differ and where one is better than the other. So let's take a look at that difference. And the difference can be summarized as this. So workflow is predefined and static set of processes. It's repeatable, predictable, and linear, but it may need human supervision for some steps. An agent is good for tasks that require dynamic decisions. It's non-linear and adaptable up to a certain point, but it can hallucinate. So sometimes we need to give some structure and to our workflow. And in that sense, a typical workflow is a really good way to go. A systematic linear process is a good way to go. And sometimes for some nodes of that workflow, we might want to give it some leeway, some agency for the agent to be able to complete its tasks. So in effect, what we need both. And while we've created an agent to do those 3 steps, my concern is that we're giving it too much to do. My concern is that these AI models are actually kind of dumb, where maybe what we need to do is split this into 2 steps instead of the single agent step. So maybe what we need is for it not to do the structuring part and to create a new agent just to handle the structure part of the process. So let's look at that, what that looks like. So if we open up our agent and open it up so we can see that clearly, if we take away step 3, we're just left with 2 steps. And if we close that and execute that step, we still get structured output. And this is an important gotcha because we've got simple memory available to the agent. And what often happens is when you make major changes like this to your workflow, the memory remembers what it did before. So what we need to do is we need to wipe that memory. And the easiest way to wipe this memory is to 1, save, and then to refresh. And then let's paste that back in and go. No, that's not it. So we've got as our output from there some, just in terms of text format. So it's not handled any sort of structure. And then now we can create another AI agent purely to handle the structure. So, and if we said define below, and this is our prompt user message, go to expression and then open that up so it's nice and big, and we can drag in the previous output. So this is the unformatted output, and we can tell it to structure the data. It's a simple prompt, maybe needs some more work on it, but it'll do for now. Let's see if it works. So this is the result, what the output should look like. Close that and execute this step. And again, we've got that error because we haven't connected our chat model. So let's set up our chat model. And we could, if we wanted to, pick a different model to do the next step. So if Qwen wasn't doing a good job with the structuring, we could pick, the Gemma model, for instance. But I'm going to go with Qwen. And memory, again, just simple memory is fine, whatever the default is. It doesn't need anything too advanced. And if we open this up and execute this step again, and then we've got our output. So what have we done? We've created a workflow, 2 steps, 2 agents, one which is solely focused on getting the insights, extracting the insights, and a second agent which is solely focused on structuring the output. So then it's very, very discrete, small, simple tasks and simple goals, with even smaller, simple tasks, simple goals within each one of those agents. Now, all this is well and good. You might have noticed, why do we need everything in JSON format? And that's because when we're dealing with workflows like this, having it in JSON format is really useful because that's the language, first of all, that n8n can understand. And also because we can then use that data and put it into a Google spreadsheet or an Airtable or something like that. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing next time. So come along next time and we'll pick up where we left off.